Hello everyone, my name is Melanie and this is Digital Yaoi. This is a panel all about reading and buying yaoi in a digital format. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to go over is why you should even bother moving to a digital format. I mean, what's wrong with print books? Well, there's actually a lot of good reasons to move to a digital format. And the first one has to do with cost. So look at this example of his favorite. Now his favorite at the moment has 12 books. Before any sales, each of those books are $12.99. So $12.99 times 12 books is $155. Now if you were to buy those in a digital format, like let's say on Amazon, that would be $6.49 per book times 12 books. That's only $77. So that's basically like half price compared to the paperback. Another example is Twittering Birds Never Fly. This is a series in which 5 volumes are $14.95 in the print and 1 volume is $19.95 in the print. When you add that up, to buy it in print, it's $94. Then if you go to the digital, 3 of the volumes are $7.95 and 3 of the volumes are $9.95. You add all of that up and it's $53. So you see this big difference between 94 and 53. Once again, the digital version is cheaper. But cost isn't the only reason why we should consider moving to a digital format. Another thing is supporting authors. So when it comes to supporting authors, we first have to talk about scanlations. So if you don't know what scanlations are scans of manga that have been translated by fans instead of professional translators. Scanlations do not support the authors because they're not going through a professional publisher. So it can be kind of hard to tell whether or not you're looking at something that is a scanlation sometimes. You just sort of like Google search what you're looking for and you can like read it for free online. Well, a key clue is if you have like a page like this at the beginning or the end that has all this translator, proofreader, cleaner, you know, if you have things like, oh, your typesetter was buttermilk biscuits. Well, you know, in this example, I'm pretty sure a professional typesetter is not named buttermilk biscuits. So this can be a clue when you have these scan later group pages that what you're actually reading is a scanlation and not something that is supporting an author. Once again, this can all be very confusing. All you do is a quick Google search and you can kind of read whatever you want for free on many different sites. Here's some examples of them. And you can even go on your phone and download apps to read scanlations. And it's hard to tell what's a scanlation and what's not a scanlation. Well, right now, I don't want you to worry too much about that. I just want you to be aware that some things are legal and help authors and some things are not. And right now, we're going to be focusing on things that help authors. So one of the things that help authors is the digital manga industry. The most interesting thing about the digital manga industry is that digital titles can make more money for authors than print titles. Now, I know this sounds kind of weird. I mean, if I'm paying more money for the print title, the author should get more money, right? Well, no. It's because printing can be expensive. You have the cost of printing, the cost of materials, the cost of warehouse storage, the cost of shipping, and then what happens if the book doesn't sell? You're going to end up with all of these print books in a warehouse that you have to pay to be in the warehouse. There's a lot more risk involved with printing manga. And because printing manga is riskier, publishers want a bigger cut. And this is very important in the manga industry because you have both American publishers and foreign publishers taking a cut. And they're going to take more from a print book because the print book is riskier. Now, I was actually talking to some people from June back in Bishonen Con. Hands up to everybody who actually remembers Bishonen Con, the con that happened for 1 year. I was talking to some of them and they were saying that a lot of their authors will make double the money on a digital title versus a print title, simply because there's so much more involved with the print title. You have all of the costs and you have the publishers taking bigger cuts, and you have multiple publishers taking a cut. Whereas with the digital title, you don't have as much risk, so they're not trying to take as much of a cut, and you don't have all of these printing expenses. So the author can actually make a lot more from the digital title versus the print title. Also, it's important to remember the limitations of the yaoi industry. So as I was saying, because printing is risky, a lot of the time publishers will only print in small quantities, and then you have these like crazy jacked up prices. Like this book is literally over $600 because they only publish so many. It's volume 7 of Tyrant Falls in Love, so you don't know how many people even bought 1 through 6. There's no guarantee there's going to be enough people to buy volume 7, so they have a very small printing. That's why it's really important to look at digital titles, because if something is out of print and is super expensive, there may be a digital version available that is at a reasonable price. So next we're going to talk a little bit about digital exclusives. There are lots of books out there that are only available in a digital format. Some books were published in a print format at one time, but are no longer being published in a print format. For example, Love Pistols was published in a print format. It isn't anymore, but you can get the entire series in a digital format. So it is available even if you can't get the print. And then there's other books that were never printed in a physical format. They are only available digitally, like Detested by the Demon Lord. So there's lots of stuff out there that you can only get in a digital format. So it is good to look. There may be some hidden gems out there that you really love, but you can't get in print. And there's also bonuses that are only available digitally. So here's an example of a bonus. We have the series His Favorite, which is 12 volumes long, and all of those volumes are published both digitally and in a print format. However, this series also has a special booklet about them, getting racy on a desert island together. And that special is only available digitally. So once again, it's good to try going digital. Even if you want to read the series in a print format, sometimes there's extras that you can only get digitally. And then there's Webtoons. So we're actually going to be talking about Webtoons quite a bit during this panel because Webtoons are a format that is primarily digital. Only a few series have ever been printed in a physical format. Lastly, we're going to talk about convenience. I personally find reading in a digital format incredibly convenient. You can download dozens of books onto one device. You can read anywhere, anytime. I really love that. I used to commute from Chelmsford to Boston all the time on the train, and it was so annoying because I would bring a manga book with me and then I would read it and I'd finish it, and then it's like, oh, well, now I don't have anything to read. So I'd always have to bring a backup book for when I finished the book I was reading. And I just got really annoyed with that because some days I would forget to put another book in my bag or whatever. And it's so nice to be reading a book on your tablet, finish the book, and then just go on the shop and buy the next book in the series and not have to worry about remembering to put in your bag or remembering to buy it or get out of the mail or whatever. It's just, you can just buy it right on your tablet. And another great thing about digital books is that you can also download free samples, which is really great. Like someone recommends something to you, you can just download a sample to kind of look at the art or see if it's something you might like before you actually buy it. Also, digital books can actually save you a lot of space. I know this is true for me personally. I actually bought a shelf with doors on it for my yaoi collection because I have this huge yaoi collection and some of my pets have chewed up some of the books. So in order to protect them, I actually bought a cabinet with doors on it. But there's only so many cabinets with doors on it that I can fit in my place. And to have all of these books that I want to read over and over again on my device, on a device that even if that device breaks, I can just re-download them on a new device is so great. You don't have to worry about your pets ruining them anymore. So that was the reasons why we should buy digitally. Now we're going to look into how to actually read digitally. So the three main devices people use are tablets, cell phones, and computers. So first, let's talk about tablets, my personal favorite. I really like tablets because they feel like reading a book. You hold it like a book, you can adjust the brightness for comfort, you can tap to turn the page. It feels like reading a book. And the best part of tablets is they have a wide variety of formats and ebook readers to choose from. You can kind of just do what you want with tablets. If you're going to start reading with a tablet, you should know that screen size can be important. Small screens can be bothersome to some people. Some people really struggle with small text on a small screen. It gives them eye strain and headaches. Other people have no problem whatsoever. This is all a matter of personal preference. If you are someone who is bothered by small text on a small screen, you should consider getting a tablet that's as big as a manga book, about 9 inches or bigger. So here's an example of a screen that's good for manga reading. You just basically, like what I did was I actually brought a manga book to the store with me and I compared all of the tablets to that manga book so I could see one that was a similar size. And here is another image where you can see that the manga book fits the screen perfectly. So no matter what, while I'm reading, I'm never going to have to feel like I need to increase the size of the page because the screen is going to be just the right size for reading manga. Next, we have phones. Phones have a wide variety of formats and ebook readers to choose from, just like tablets. However, with phones, some are uncomfortable with the small size of the screen. Others have no problem. This is a matter of personal preference. If you have a problem with small screens, you may want to try Webtoons. Webtoons are a style of comic developed in South Korea. They're made to be easy to read on your phones. You read them vertically, and there's usually a lot of white space separating out the different segments to make it easier to read. Now, this format has become so popular that authors outside of Korea are creating comics in that format, so it's not just a Korean thing anymore. And it also should be noted that it's so popular that manga is now being republished in a Webtoon format. So here's an example. This is from Titan's Bride, and on the left you see the actual manga page from the original. And on the right, you see that it has been republished in a Webtoon format. So it has all the same panels. They've just been cut apart and re-put together in a format that is easier for your eye to understand. Instead of having all the boxes next to each other, there's lots of white space in between them, and they're read vertically, so you can simply scroll with your phone to read them, making them much easier to read on a phone. Another way for you to read digitally is with computers. Some people have no problems reading on computers. Other people really hate reading on computers because it doesn't feel like reading the book. The screen is far away from your face, and so the image actually feels smaller. And once again, this is a matter of preference. Some people like reading on computers, some people don't. If you like reading on computers, I highly recommend doing PDFs. PDFs are really great for computers because you can make the image any size and it stays that size. It's not like some e-readers where every time you turn the page, it returns to the original size and you have to like resize it. It stays that size and you can just simply scroll down on your computer. I highly believe that this is the most comfortable format to use if you want to read digital manga on your computer. So next, we are going to move on to formats. Sometimes when you are buying yaoi from a digital store, you're going to have a choice of what format you can buy. When it comes to formats, I recommend PDFs or CBZs. PDFs are great for tablets, phones, and computers. They're great for everything. Also, if you like scrolling, they're great because they are a format that scrolls. So if you like scrolling on your phone, it's perfect. CBZs are really great for tablets. There's a variety of CBZ readers to choose from on your tablet so you can read them. And the big difference is that they are page turning format. So you like tap the side of the screen or you swipe to turn them. I prefer CBZs because I like turning pages, but I also have a big tablet. If you are not sure what format to choose from, PDFs is probably the way to go because they work on the most things. Now, formats to avoid. I definitely tend to avoid EPUBs. There's a lot of really terrible EPUBs out there, and also PRCs or MOBIs that are not from the Amazon site. If you are on the Amazon website and you're buying an ebook, whatever format they have available there is usually good quality. I haven't had much trouble with Amazon, but I have had trouble trying to buy PRCs or MOBI from a third party like June or something, and then using them on my Amazon app. So here's an example of some issues you might have. The image on the right, I just want to make clear, I did not add that giant white border. This is just a screenshot of my tablet. The EPUB that I was looking at was so janky, it was creating this huge white border, and it was also creating incredibly poor resolution. And I've had that problem with EPUBs and MOBIs and things like that, where it will actually add borders, change the resolution, sometimes even squish the image. These are formats that were not made for images. They were really made for text files, so they don't always work as well with images. So those are hardware and formats. Now we are going to move on to where to buy and where to read. And first, we're going to talk about free and legal spaces. So I bet you weren't expecting me to start with libraries, but here's the thing. Many libraries have digital manga, and some libraries use apps. And so for the examples you're going to see, I'm going to be talking about an app called Libby, but that doesn't mean all libraries use that app. Different libraries may have different apps. This is just an example. So when it comes to Libby, I can search for Yaoi, and if I see something that says borrow, I can just go ahead, borrow it, and immediately start reading it. If I see something that says place hold, well, then I get in line to read it. So if you look at the example on the right where it has you are first in line, 2 copies in use, 1 person waiting, that means that there are 2 copies in use and I am in the first in line. So once those copies are done being in use, I will be the next person to get a copy. So as long as you're cool with a little bit of waiting, a place hold means you can still read the book as soon as someone else is done reading it. And what's great about these, newer apps is that it will let you know where you are in line. It might even give you estimates as to when they think the book is going to be ready. And one really important thing I want to emphasize about these digital books in libraries is just because they are at a library does not mean they are censored. I read Black Sun on the Libby app through my local library, and it was completely uncensored. So you can get uncensored yaoi at your local library digitally without even having to go into the library. So definitely consider checking out your local library. Another interesting thing about libraries that you may not be aware of is interlibrary loan. So basically, interlibrary loan is where you get a book from another library. So when it comes to libraries, a lot of them are a part of consortiums. So like I live in Chelmsford and it's a part of the Merrimack Valley Library Consortium. So when you go on their website and you look for a manga book, you see who has it. You see, oh, Chelmsford and Andover and Billerica and all these different places have it, and they're all in association with each other, so you all can kind of see what libraries have what's in the area. So let's use an example like 10 Dance. So let's say you want to read 10 Dance, but you don't want to pay money for it. Well, you go online and you look and you see, okay, there's only one copy in the Merrimack Valley Consortium, and it is in Haverhill. Now, if your library does interlibrary loan, you can contact your local library, tell them you want that Haverhill book. They will, through a courier service or through mail or however they do it, have that book taken from Haverhill, sent to your local library. You pick it up there, you read it, you drop it off at your local library, and they will send it back to Haverhill. And this is so helpful because that means you don't have to go all the way over to Haverhill or to some town that's nowhere near you to get this book. You can have books sent to you, sent to your local library, pick them up there, read them, and then drop them off when you're done with them. And many libraries offer interlibrary loan for free. It all depends on the library. You have to check with your local library whether or not they participate in that. But if they do, that is one way to get print books for free. So you can either use the library app to get books for free, or you can use interlibrary loan to get print books in your area. So also with Free and Legal, we have some free and legal apps. So the first one is Bilibili Comics. They are a Chinese app. So most of the comics are Chinese that have been translated into English. And at the moment they are free. They are planning on having a pay structure in the future in which certain things you pay for, but at the moment they are completely free. And we also have Webtoon. So Webtoon is mostly free. Almost all the comics on there are free. There's only a few things on there that are not free. But when it comes to these things that are not free, patience equals freedom. So there are comics that you have to pay money for, but they give you daily passes for these comics. So every day you could read 1 or 2 chapters for free. And if you're patient, you could read the whole comic for free. Also, Webtoon has this early access thing where if you really want to read the next chapter right away, you have to pay for it. But if you're willing to wait, you can read once the latest chapter becomes available and is not in early access, you can read it for free. So Webtoon is technically a free site. As long as you're patient, you can read everything for free. And there's also a lot of stuff on there that is completely free. So sadly, that is the end of the free sites. Next, we're going to move on to subscriptions. So we have Yaoi site subscriptions and we have general manga Webtoon site subscriptions. So when it comes to Yaoi subscriptions, we have Futekiya and YaoiCat. When it comes to these two sites, they are very similar. Both have a wide selection to choose from, and there's a lot of overlap, meaning a lot of the same titles are on both. So it's not super important which one you choose. You know, they both have wonderful qualities. For me, I think the one thing that's really different between the two is that Futekiya has a pepper rating system that I really love. So if you look at these two examples on the right, you see one has 5 peppers and one has 1 pepper. Well, that is a spiciness rating that lets you know how sexy a work is. So the more peppers, the more sex is going to be in the book, which I find personally helpful because sometimes you want something really raunchy. You want something that's 5 peppers. Sometimes you want something more sweet. You want something that's more like a 1 or 2 pepper. And, you know, it can be really hard to tell just looking at the cover how spicy something is. So if you look at the cover of Dragon's Husband, it's literally these giant dragon claws around this guy. It's very suggestive. It's very suggestive that there's going to be some monster sex scenes in here. And so I clicked on that. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for some monster raunchiness. Let's go. And I saw the 1 pepper and I'm like, what? Why is there just 1 pepper? Look at that cover. Of course it's going to be crazy. What's going on? And having that 1 pepper there prepared me for what was in the book. I I really enjoyed Dragon's Husband. I liked it a lot, but if I had gone into it expecting something raunchy, I would have been disappointed because there's nothing like really raunchy in there. So that pepper system I find very helpful, and that's really the big difference between the two. And so some people are going to choose YaoiCat because it is cheaper. Some people are going to be really into the pepper system and want the Futekiya. It's all up to you. So sadly, that is the end of Yaoi Sites when it comes to subscription. Next, we're going to move on to general manga and Webtoon sites. So here's a list of subscription services you can choose from, and this isn't even all of the ones out there. Like there's other subscription services like Manga Planet Library and Azuki. This is just a list of stuff I have found Yaoi on. So there's so many that are available, and we really don't have time to go into each one, the pros and cons. So instead, what we're going to focus on is just advice, things to do, things to look at when you're thinking about trying a subscription service. So when it comes to subscriptions, first of all, it's important to remember that a lot of these subscription services have free trials. So it's cool to like go in and just kind of like see what's there, try it out. When it comes to subscription services, it's really important to remember read, cancel, and coming back. The thing about subscription services is people kind of like feel like they're signing up for something and that they have to stick with it. You really don't have to. You don't have to stick with anything. You can sign up for a free trial, read it for as long as you want, and then cancel it. There's nothing stopping you from canceling it and moving on to a different subscription services. Go read what's there, what you're interested in, cancel it, and move on. And then come back in a year. In a year, maybe they'll have different books that interest you again, and you can sign up for a month and just pay the one fee for a month and then cancel it when you're done. It's okay to read, cancel, and come back. You don't have to pick one thing and stick with that one thing. And the one other thing I will say about subscription services is that they are really great for trying new comics and for trying like new mangakas, because like there's going to be like comics that people recommend and I'm not sure if I'm interested in it, or you're gonna have like mangaka that like, oh, that I kind of like their art's cool, but I don't know anything about them. Well, you can pay the one price, like $6.99 or something, and then read books from that author, read comics like that you may have never tried before, and just kind of get a feel for stuff, and then cancel it when you're done. So here's a list of all of the subscriptions we've talked about, including Yaoi and non-Yaoi sites. I'm just going to leave this here for you guys to take a screen cap. And so hopefully everyone who wants to take one has taken one. We're going to move on. So after subscription sites, we're going to talk about Webtoon sites and apps. So there are a ton of Webtoon sites to choose from. These are the ones I am aware of, but there could be way more out there. Webtoons are becoming so popular right now that there could be like new sites created right now that I'm not even aware of. So if you guys hear of any new sites, let me know. But we don't have time to go over all of these. There is so many. So instead, once again, we're going to talk about advice about how to deal with Webtoon sites and how to get the best from those sites. So when it comes to Webtoon pay sites, the number one thing you should know is to shop around. I cannot emphasize this enough. Please shop around. So here's an example. It's called Biting the Tiger. And if you shop around, you'll find out there is so many places to buy this comic. So many places. And if you don't shop around, you won't be aware of all the different places and all the different deals you could get. Because when you shop around, you can realize that you can read the entire Biting the Tiger series for only $3.99 for Manta. You just pay the fee for 1 month, $3.99, and you can read that whole series and then cancel your Manta subscription. Or if you're like me and you like to own chapters and reread them over and over again, if they're a series you like, you can go to Tabbytoon and pay 35 cents per chapter, which is so much cheaper than if you were to pay 60 cents per chapter with Lezhin. Another great example for shopping around is Kingsmaker. So with Kingsmaker, if you just used Lezhin and that was the only site you used, you would only see season 1, and season 1 would be about 60 cents per chapter. But if you shop around, you would realize that on Tabbytoon, you have seasons 1 through 3. You have season 1 called Kingsmaker and season 2 and 3, which are called Triple Crown. And those chapters are only 35 cents per chapter. So they're half the price practically. And not only that, but season 2 and 3 also have a mature version. So you can choose to read the regular Triple Crown all audience version, or you can choose the mature version with more sex scenes. But if you don't shop around, you're not going to be aware that you're going to have the same comic on different places, and you'll have different seasons in different places. Next, when dealing with Webtoons, we have to think about mature content and where to find it. When it comes to Webtoon apps, they have to deal with the App Store. And when they have to deal with the App Store, they want to reduce the mature content they have in the app so they don't get in any trouble. So when it comes to certain companies like Lezhin, they will have a regular app that you buy through the App Store, and then they have a plus mature app that you have to download from online, not in the App Store. So here's an example of the instructions where you actually have to go online on your phone and then you download it from the web browser instead of through the App Store. And if you do this, you get the plus version of the app that's going to have all the mature content, and you don't have to have any restricted stuff on it. In addition to mature apps, you also have a lot of sites that only have mature content on the web browser. So for example, we have Tabbytoon or Tapas, and both are examples in which in order to get the mature content, you have to go on the web browser and either go to that section or turn it on in order to actually see that content. This is extremely important because it actually affects search functions. So I'm a big fan of the Ennead, and if I tell someone, oh, you should read the Ennead on Tabbytoon, they're probably going to go on the app and search Ennead. Now, if you search Ennead on the Tabbytoon app, the only thing that will come up is the censored version. If you want to read the mature, uncensored version, the only way you can even see it show up as a search function is to go on the website, to go on your web browser, either on your phone or on your computer, and search Ennead, and that is the only time it will actually show up as an option. You can't see it on the app on your phone. So it's always complicated because whenever I recommend the Ennead, I always oh, but make sure you go on the website. You can't use the app, you have to use the website. Lastly, when it comes to Webtoons, it's important to remember that there's a lot of free options or wait until free. So a lot of websites will actually have comics where they'll have little clocks in the corner, and those little clocks will mean that this is a wait until free comic. And so you can read a certain amount every day. You can read a chapter or two every day. And if you come back every day, you could read most of the series for free, or even all of the series for free sometimes. And it's a great way to actually, get some free content. It's just, you have to have patience. They kind of rely on the idea that people don't have patience anymore. So once you get hooked on the series, you can't wait and now you have to buy it. But if you have patience, there's a lot of free stuff out there. So that is the Webtoon portion, and here is a list of the different Webtoons we've talked about, including free sites and subscription sites, and I'm just going to leave that there for a second for people to take a screen cap of that list for later. Okay, hopefully people got a screenshot. Moving on to manga sites and apps. So we have Yaoi Stores and we have general manga stores. So I'm sure you guys have heard of June and Sublime before. These are both wonderful yaoi publishers. I love them so much. And you can buy directly from them. June is a site that lets you pick what format you want. You can pick like PDF or ZBZ or PRC or whatever. As I mentioned before, CBZ, PDF are what I recommend. And Sublime also has PDFs, which is fantastic. And I believe they also have EPUBs, but I do recommend the PDF. However, you don't need to feel restricted. Oh, I can only use the June website. I can only use the Sublime website. All of these books are also available on other places, Kindle, Google Play, Nook, whatever. And so you can, if you want a Sublime book, you don't have to go to the Sublime site. You can go to a different site and purchase it wherever you are comfortable purchasing it. There are a wide variety of manga stores to choose from besides June and Sublime. And once again, there are so many, we don't have time to go into each one individually and discuss the pros and cons. So we're just going to focus on some advice when buying manga from manga stores. So when it comes to manga stores, you also want to shop around. And I want to emphasize shopping around. It's super important. Because you could have examples like this. This is Mouthmate, and on the June website, this is $4.45 per chapter. Now that is per chapter, not per book. And if you don't shop around, you won't realize that there are much cheaper places to buy this. You could buy this for only $1.48 per chapter on Bookwalker. My next advice is pay attention to what you're buying. And that's kind of a big thing. So I broke it down into 4 different questions. So when you're paying attention to what you're buying, the first question I want you to ask is this a chapter or is this a book? So here's an example of a book I really like called Zeniano. I love this book and I wanted to buy it. And you can buy the entire volume for $6.99 on Amazon. But on the exact same Amazon site, you can buy it per chapter. And if you bought all of the chapters, all 7 chapters together, it's $12.93. It's literally like double the price. So it's really important to pay attention. Like even on the same site, even on the Amazon website, you can buy volumes or you can buy chapters. And there may be the option to buy the entire volume at a cheaper price. So always look at what you're buying and be like, is this a chapter? Am I paying $4 for a chapter? Or is this an entire volume that I'm buying? Is this a series of chapters? Could I buy all of them at once and get a cheaper price? Could I buy the entire volume at once and get a cheaper price? So that's the first thing to question, is this a chapter? Is this a book? Next, is this the original manga or is this a Webtoon version? So let's look back at this Titan Sprite example where you have the original manga, which would be great to read on something like a tablet, and then we have the Webtoon version of that same manga, which is great to read on a phone. So you have multiple versions of this exact same comic, and the original version you can buy at places like Bookwalker or Manga.club, whereas the Webtoon version you can buy at Coolmic. Now, which one you want to buy is 100% up to you. I like being able to read stuff on my phone. I've been reading the Webtoon version, and I've really enjoyed it because that's also further along in the plot line. They haven't published as much of the original manga as they had of the Webtoon version, but that's a matter of preference. There isn't really a difference except that one is in a vertical format and one is in an original format. So there is one other thing I want you to be aware of when it comes to manga versus Webtoons. And we're going to use this example from eRenta. If you search for A Coward Falls in Love on eRenta, you'll see 2 different versions. One is the original manga, and one is the Verticomics version, which is their word for turning the original manga into a webtoon. So when you look at these two versions, the original manga is $2 per chapter, and it's 6 chapters. Well, the webtoon version is $1 per chapter, and it's 12 chapters. And some of you may be like, whoa, wait a minute. Why is the webtoon not only cheaper, but has more chapters? Is the webtoon version better? Well, no, the webtoon version isn't better. Basically what happens is when they take a original manga and they turn it into a webtoon, they usually separate it into more chapters. So one manga chapter usually equals 2 or 3 webtoon chapters. So that's why they're half the price and there's more available. It's not because there's more content, it's because they crop them up to make them easier to have on your phone. They're smaller files, so they're easier for the companies to deal with. So when you see these difference in chapters, don't freak out, don't worry about it. It's just because of the way they have cut them up. That's why there's going to be difference in chapter numbers and difference in prices. It's really a matter of what do you prefer. Do you prefer the manga version or do you prefer reading a webtoon? Next question, is it a quality ebook? Is it a clear image? Is it something I can read or enjoy, or is it just a grainy mess? So I'm going to bring you back to that example of Maiden Rose we were looking at before. Remember, this example was an EPUB with incredibly grainy image and a huge white border that the format actually added. The EPUB added this. This is not like something I added. This is just what it looked like on my tablet because it was such poor quality. There are some really, really poor quality books out there. And it's not just about poor resolution. There's also some weird formatting issues you can run into. So if you look at the example on the right, this is an example from Three Wolves Mountain. I did not add that big black border at the top. I did not add that big black border at the bottom. That's just how the book came. It was impossible to read one page at a time. This is something I bought from Kobo, and I actually contacted Kobo customer service to try and figure out how to read one page at a time, and it wouldn't let me. Even if I turned the book sideways, the pages were still really annoying and had borders on the sides. So you can run into all sorts of problems. So, what do? There's these bad ebooks out there. What do? The number one recommendation I can give you is look at the preview. This is actually the final question of the 4 that I had. Is there a preview? When you are looking to see if the book is a quality ebook, if there's any image issues, if it's poor resolution, the easiest way to figure that out is by looking at the preview. So some stores will just have it on the web browser. You can just flick through a few pages. Others, you can actually download a sample to your app, whether it's on a tablet or a phone or whatever. And if it looks terrible, if it looks like garbage, don't buy it. You can buy that book probably at a different store and you don't have to use the garbage example, So definitely take a look at the preview. And if for whatever reason you buy a book and it turns out to be terrible resolution, it's just really annoying to read, you can return it. Most stores will let you return it if you complain about the resolution. It's usually not a problem. Just remember that when you buy the book, take a look at it to make sure it looks good, so that way you can return it right away. If you wait a month, they might not let you return it. That is Manga Stores and Publishers. I'm just going to hold here for a second for people to take a screen cap. And that is the end of my presentation. Now it is time for the Q&A. I hope you enjoyed.